Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Let's get after it.
Oh, you know what? Like, let's think about what shoot me. Come back. Back.
I don't have pretty much any information at all on that clip, but that was by far one of the most realistic UFO clips I've seen in a long while. It even has that weird trumpet sound going on if you listen closely. Very cool.
The Vatican controls a secret library in China and no one is talking about it. In 1900, a Taoist monk named Wang Yuanlu discovered a hidden library within the Magao caves in China. Thousands of ancient manuscripts, paintings, and artifacts were found, but not all were made public. Some say that this library contains forbidden knowledge, records of extraterrestrial contact, revelations of hidden dimensions, and that its secrets are guarded by a shadowy organization called the Vatican. But in 1943, an illegal expedition unearthed a hidden chamber within the caves containing texts written in an unknown language. These texts hinted at an ancient civilization with knowledge of advanced technology and interdimensional travel. Researchers speculate that the ancient texts were not just prophecies, but instructions left by an advanced civilization. The Vatican's involvement is super weird. Why would a religious institution hold such profound secrets in China? Recently, leaked documents show that AI has been partly successful in decoding this unknown language and has revealed a prophecy about a great cosmic event that would awaken humanity to a higher state of consciousness. What's terrifying is that the AI's translation suggests this event has already begun.
This is totally in the realm of possibility in regards to the Vatican having locked away some ancient library to keep us from having access. We all know the answers to life's greatest questions are likely being held by lock and key in the Vatican archives. This story seems to play out time and time again. Some big hoard of books and manuscripts gets discovered, and the Catholic Church swoops in to collect everything. Why have they been given so much authority? That's the part that makes no sense to me. Hey, if you're enjoying this video and you like this kind of content, I post a new one just like it every day, Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. It'd be awesome if you'd hit that subscribe button and come back tomorrow to join me. Also, don't forget to check out the latest episode of the podcast. The link is in the description.
I recently made a video on Chester Bennington, and I prefaced it wrong. I said he unalived himself because I got lost in his page and it made me cry, you know what I mean? But I want you guys to really know the reason why he was unalived.
So Avicii, he made a song called Better Days, which is basically his last song. So what happened was in the video, he was showing that they were being trafficked into the desert. They opened this van up because these billionaires would like pick which they wanted, and then who knows what they were going to do to literally 6 months later, Avicii gets killed in real life.
Wait, how did he die? I thought it was a drug overdose.
A drug overdose. So they framed these people, particular types of deaths, in order to kill them. So Avicii, Chris Cornell, and Chester Bennington all were killed within 6 months. And the reason is they were all linked to a documentary in order to like expose what was happening with trafficking.
Did this documentary ever?
Never came out.
But how did I know it was being filmed?
It's a trailer film. They dropped the trailer.
And this is where you've heard the conspiracy come forward that Chester Bennington looks a whole like John Podesta. If you know, you know. I'm not going to put the picture up there because they might take the video down due to misinformation or disinformation or whatever. But it's all speculation that he looks or could be related to the man with Pizzagate. It's an evil world we live in, guys. Let me just say that. And everything you think you know, you have no idea. There's a reason why 800,000 going missing is not a political topic. There's a reason for that, but they want y'all to worry about gender affirming care. They rather you worry about LGBTQ, but they don't want to preface or highlight why they have 800,000 kids go missing. And him, this man, this lovely soul, was trying to share a light to it. You ever wonder why someone on here starts talking about that? They get demonetized. There's a Christian There's a Christian creator on here. I went on his live and asked him, why don't you ever talk about, you know, the kids missing? You know, you're doing God's work. You're on this app selling God, right? But you won't fight evil directly. You know what he said to my face on live? He will not bring that up because I only want to finish what I'm going to say. He cared more about making money on here than fighting evil. So then I said to him, I was like, you're a Christian creator. Why won't you fight evil? Why won't you stand for God? Why will you not care? And he said this is his major income. And his income is more worth fighting evil. So you're selling God to profit instead of standing on morals. That's interesting. I'm not going to tell you which creator it is, but he has a big platform on here. And it makes me look at Christian creators a whole lot different because they're not willing to stand for evil. They're not willing to stand for their moral fiber, all in the mighty dollar. It's a shame. There's a lot of people we follow in here, and I have to say this, and I know it sounds cliche in the year 2024, but they're not like us. They're really not. There's only some of us out here that really will fight for truth. And this man was alive for one of those fights for truth. Anyone who's a truth teller or truth seeker on this app, I salute. I really do. Because you are choosing the awakening of your people over $1. That dollar. That like button. Stand for something. Or fall for anything. Rest in peace, these three. Peace of the gods.
From the jump, I've had my suspicions about Cornell's death. Then you see how he was tied to Avicii and Bennington, and how they were all taken out supposedly by their own hand in such a short amount of time. It just looks too fishy. And the only thing that really ties them all together is their work fighting against the abuse of children. And then, someone else who's attached to all of this and died under mysterious circumstances, Anne Heche. She has that car crash. We're told she dies on impact, but then you can clearly see that she sits up while they're loading her into the ambulance. There's certainly good reason to not take all of their deaths at face value.
Fourth dimensional beings cast a three-dimensional shadow on Earth, and I can prove it scientifically. This specific thought woke me up out of a dead melatonin sleep. I had taken 3 or 4 gummies and it still woke me up. Now, we're gonna start talking about it. Stay with me, focus. Don't laugh at me, but what got me thinking about this was a Bill Cipher edit. If you don't know who Bill Cipher is, he's a character from Gravity Falls. He is a 3-dimensional being born in a 2-dimensional world. His story, I think, is one of the most well-written plots of our lifetime. Never seen the show, love the character. But it got me thinking. A dimensional creature will always cast a shadow on the dimension below it. If you are a 2D creature, like Bill Cipher's family, you would cast a 1D shadow. If you are a 3D creature, like me and you, even though I am 3D, my shadow here is still 2D. Okay, so just to surmise, dimensional beings will cast a shadow on the dimension below it. And since me and you are 3-dimensional creatures, our shadows are 2-dimensional. So, a 4th-dimensional creature would cast a 3-dimensional shadow. What the f does that mean? What the hell does a 3-dimensional shadow look like? The Hat Man. Shadow people. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? I think you're picking it up. If a 4-dimensional creature, assuming that the 4th dimension that we are talking about is time and space, were to cast a shadow in the dimension below it, it would be a 3-dimensional shadow. Because when you go up a dimension, so does your shadow. Shadow people, the Hat Men, whatever you want to call them, are not entities themselves. That's why they never interact. That's why they just sit and watch. See, I can do all kinds of things with my shadow, but it cannot interact. Shadow beings can't interact because they're a lower dimensional representation of a higher dimensional being.
I think this lady might have just cracked the code on the Hat Man. This is the best theory I've ever heard for shadow people. I like it. And if you like great stories about shadow people, we just had a really great caller telling us about an experience with the Hat Man in either last week's episode of the podcast or the one we're about to put out. If you haven't checked out the podcast yet, I highly suggest you do. If you like the old Coast to Coast AM radio call-in show, you're going to love this podcast. The link is in the description, or you can just search on YouTube for Unknown Caller Paranormal Switchboard.
4th dimensional beings cast a 3-dimensional shadow on Earth, and I can prove it scientifically, but
okay, you have to watch this video. This is a perfect explanation of how we see shadow people in our three-dimensional space. These beings are fourth-dimensional beings that are casting three-dimensional shadows. Just like us being three-dimensional beings, we cast a two-dimensional shadow. Einstein says you need to describe where you are not only in a three-dimensional space, but also in time. What time you are in. And that's the fourth dimension. That's the dimension that three-dimensional beings like us, we can't touch. At least we can't see into yet. But she describes this perfectly. Go watch this video. But let's take it a step further. Let's take it one dimension down. A comic book page is a two-dimensional medium. Now, let's say that we're able to stick an object into that comic book medium and interact with it. Now, what's that two-dimensional being like Superman or Spider-Man going to see? If we stick a pen into their reality, they're going to see that, but it's not the whole object. Maybe we'll stick it in this way. Maybe I should stop saying stick it in. But you get my point. They're not seeing the entire picture, just like we're not seeing the entire picture of the Hat Man or the Shadow People. So let's take it one step up. So us being in the third dimension, what do we see if a fourth dimensional being sticks an object into our dimension? I gotta quit saying this. We see something like this. Yeah. Go watch this video. She makes a perfect point. So all this talk of 4 dimensions, how many dimensions are there out there? Well, according to science, somewhere between 10 and 26.
So if I'm following him, he's saying that we're just seeing the 3-dimensional shadows of a 4-dimensional craft. While this would be a great explanation for why they make no splash in the water or seem to leave no propulsion trail behind them, I don't think this can be the explanation because we've just got too many instances of these things crashing. And I highly doubt that a shadow, even if it's a 3-dimensional shadow, would be able to abduct a person or mutilate a cow. I could be wrong though. It could just be that this is the explanation for some of the UFOs and just not all of them. Maybe that.
This goes back more than a century, and it changes everything you know about the United States. This lady lost her life trying to get you this information. This isn't taught in schools, it's not mentioned in the news, but it's real, and it affects every American to this day.
Is the Constitution that we know today in effect, or is there a different Constitution that you claim?
Unfortunately, we are being snookered by the Congress, and we are not under our first Constitution. We are under this second secret Constitution. The reason this happened is because when Benjamin Franklin was negotiating the Revolutionary War debt, he got rescheduling, and it was going to fall due in the 1870s. And when that debt fell due, and we couldn't pay it, that's when the bankers gave us a second secret Constitution. They turned the United States into a corporation.
Under this new corporate constitution, citizens became property, collateral for debt. Your rights, your freedoms, all subordinated to the needs of the corporate entity. Every time you pay taxes, every time you interact with the government, you're not dealing with a republic, you are dealing with a corporation. And here is where it gets really crazy.
When you go to court to protect your right, you don't even get to first base because that judge is not sitting in what you call a court of equity. They're not looking at you as if you're a citizen of the United States. They're handling you as if you're a person who's just servicing the debt of the United States. You're there as a thing.
Do we have any judges or attorneys in the audience that can settle this once and for all? I've been sucked down this rabbit hole multiple times now, and I think it's just wishful thinking that leads the believers of this stuff to think they have a way to redeem some secret rights or liberties that they were robbed of. I will say this, though. It's more believable than most of the stuff I look into. If there's a judge or an attorney watching, can you drop a comment and let us all know? Are we intentionally treated like property in the courtroom? Is there some big conspiracy? Or is this just a bunch of armchair detectives reading history wrong?
And you believe that there is an invisible line that is not crossed by fish, land animals, or even birds. This invisible barrier runs through the Malay archipelago, starting from the island of Bali and ending near the southern Philippines. The western side of the line is home to animals like rhinos, elephants, tigers, and woodpeckers, which are typical of Asia. But once you cross the line, you enter a completely different world with kangaroos, monitor lizards, dingoes, and koalas, despite the extremely short distance between the islands. This is what scientists call a biological boundary, and this particular one is known as the Wallace Line. You see, over millions of years, due to the movement of tectonic plates and the complex geological history of the region, a deep sea strait formed on the Wallace Line. This strait prevented animals from migrating, and as a result, evolution took its own path on opposite sides of this line. Therefore, even birds and fish that can cross long distances almost never cross this line as they have adapted to survive only within their own ecosystems.
I just thought that was cool. I've never heard of one of these biological boundaries before. Makes me wonder if there's other animals in Antarctica that we aren't aware of due to some biological boundary.
A lot of people wondered if dinosaurs existed when mankind existed. Well, in my opinion, here's the evidence. You can see this looks almost like a stegosaurus.
Yeah.
You can see with the meat on its bones, which means whoever made this knew what it looked like, okay? One thing I found from a lot of these ancient cultures, they always draw what they saw or what they knew. Nobody just said, one day I'm going to have a fantasy of making a dinosaur.
Yes.
So, even if they saw the bones, how would they get the structure right with this kind of muscle and everything else? Because they probably saw it. And you can find dinosaurs at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey on the stone columns. And a lot of different other places around the world, you'll find ancient sites with depictions of dinosaurs exactly how they looked in ancient times, which means that 65 million years ago, yes, something probably happened and dinosaurs became almost extinct. But because other animals survived, we know that possibly some of these dinosaurs also survived. And the evidence can be found at temples like this at Khao Pram and many other places around the world.
This has always made sense to me. If they have depictions like these carvings and cave drawings and stuff of dinosaurs, it would simply have to mean that they saw dinosaurs. You'd have to be the victim of some pretty significant head trauma to immediately jump to the conclusion that they made all these cave drawings based on some bones they found.
For some mysterious reason, there's something really strange going on with the rain, and there are several videos from all over the world of people capturing what looks like fish coming down with the rain, or what they're calling as a black rain. This, for instance, is one of the videos coming in from Venezuela just a couple of weeks ago. Check this out. In this particular video, a woman seems to be freaking out about the amount of fish that's falling down with the rain for some mysterious reason in Venezuela. In this particular video, a woman notices a bizarre insect inside of one of the rain droplets. The video was posted by Storm Outdoors. Also coming in from Venezuela, loads of people have been noticing what looks like this black goo in the rain. Check this out.
Mira, no llovió, ni 30 minutos llovió. Ni 30 minutos llovió. Y mira cómo está la lechería, mira eso. Pobre señora.
But this isn't just in Venezuela, this also happened in Michigan and other places all over the world. To this day, there are several theories, but the reason is still unknown.
If I had to guess on this one, my mind immediately goes to weather manipulation. I don't think that's the cause of all of it, but maybe the black goo coming down in the rain. I think there's been stories of it raining fish for centuries. We're just now in the cell phone age where everyone has a camera on them, so we're getting videos of it happening now.
I just want to say a few things about this because it ties into a whole lot of the content I create as far as people imitating each other. I think that just like they do in the movies, they show us worse costumes, worse disguises, and they dumb it down so we don't know what they're truly capable of. So just like these robots, I think they probably have robots that we literally cannot tell are robots. Because these, you can tell. I think there's much better out there. Now here's an exact example of what I'm talking about. In the movie Back to the Future, we know that this woman, Michael J. Fox's mother in this movie, isn't this old. They make her up to look older and it looks bad. And it's to hide the fact that that's actually Michael J. Fox. They make disguises look intentionally bad so you know which the disguises are. So when the real disguise is that's going on, you're blind to it. The same thing they do with robots. They create these artificial looking robots so we can't detect the really good ones. Just food for thought. And of course this is for entertainment purposes only. I know that robots are always distinguishable from real people.
This one would make perfect sense. I would just assume that they would treat disguises with the same regard they treat any other form of technology with. They'll suppress it so they have sole use of it until something better comes along, making it obsolete technology, and then it gets released to the public. I can't help but wonder if the military is wanting this UFO stuff exposed so they can openly use the crafts they're backwards engineering. What technology do they have that they still want to keep hidden?
This happens to be from the front page of the USA Today, and Ralph Nader said 1 year ago, 70% of the medical doctors who treat Medicare patients in America flunked the exam on how to prescribe to them safely and effectively. 70%. Now, what would happen to American Airlines if 70% of the pilots flunked the exam on how to fly? What would happen to American Airlines if they killed 300,000 passengers a year? And why is there this difference between our acceptance of what an airline does and what... said 32,000 hip fractures each year are attributed to prescribing by medical doctors that leaves the elderly unbalanced and dizzy. To avoid stepping on the grandkid and they fall and break a hip, or they might get out of the bathtub or step out of a car and they break a hip or slide down the stairs. And this is a death sentence for 29,000 of them. Remember, 75% of the people over age 65 fracture a hip or major leg bone don't live 90 days. And I believe the only way to stop this is to make physicians responsible for this the same way that we make bartenders responsible when they give people too many drinks and let them drive home and they kill somebody else or themselves. Medications that should not be given to people over the age of 65 if they're up walking around. This is from Ralph Nader in the PDR, the Physician's Desk Reference. American doctors do prescribe these things on a regular basis to people over age 65. You're looking at high blood pressure medications, blood thinners, pain relievers, diabetic medications, arthritis medications, tranquilizers, sleeping pills, and this is the basis of the problem. Doesn't matter if you're homeless or you live in a big house. Doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, or if you're an embryo or a toddler or a teenager, middle-aged or a senior. Doesn't matter if you're educated or uneducated. Jackie Kennedy, this picture was taken of her, and I lifted it out of a magazine because I think it's significant. This picture was taken of her 3 days before she entered the hospital for chemotherapy for the first treatment for cancer. She doesn't look like a terminal cancer patient. She was taking a stroll around Central Park on a brisk day with a friend with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a type of cancer that normally takes 10, 12, 15 years to kill you. It's relatively painless. And Jackie had 15 years left when she was diagnosed. There was no death watch on her when she entered the hospital for her chemotherapy, her first treatment. She kind of waved to the press, hey, I'm going in for some chemotherapy, no big deal, and nobody made a big hoo-ha out of it. Tuesday, she was dead. 4 days later, she was dead, and you were supposed to believe that Jackie Kennedy, well, I'm a pathologist as well as a clinician, and I can guarantee you, as sure as God made little green apples, Jackie Kennedy did not die of cancer, just like Betsy Lehman. Same. Now, if they can kill the top medical reporter from the Boston Globe, they can kill Jackie Kennedy, and not a single doctor was suspended, they didn't fine the hospital, nobody was sued, what chance do each and every one of you have? None, none, and none. Okay? Now, this goes on, according to Ralph Nader, because simply of greed.
I don't know if this is true. It could all be complete nonsense. Don't watch this channel for medical advice, please. That being said, I used to work in a nursing home as the maintenance supervisor, and I would talk to the residents every day, and everybody I talked to was on every bit of that stuff he just said as being overprescribed. And old folks will tell you what medicines they're taking. Every day they'll repeat themselves and tell you again. I miss it. In regards to not having any protections from medical malpractice or mishaps when you enter a hospital, though, that's pretty common knowledge, I feel like, at this point.
UFOs in California, baby.
Dude, this is just like the New Mexico ones back in the 90s.
It was seen in Palmdale, Lancaster, and LA, California. The cops were just getting calls, and so they had to open an official investigation. But then since that, if you try to Google UFOs in Palmdale, you won't find anything.
Really?
They said the military has a site in Palmdale, while defense technology firm Lockheed Martin's development division, Skunk Works, is also located there. That's like their secret technology.
Yeah.
stuff.
So they're just probably testing things, right?
Yeah. Everyone's just like, what is that?
That'd be so terrifying walking out at night, seeing something that massive flying around. You know how Apple does like their big presentation of like, hey, look at the new stuff. Yeah. I feel like if the government did that, we're all just able to go like to a football field or something.
Tony Stark style.
I'd be so down for that, man.
I just think this is more overwhelming evidence that most of these crafts are the government and are nothing to worry about. I think they want this stuff to be exposed on their own timeline, of course, so they can start having these arms companies start bidding on contracts to mass produce new aircraft. I think the wars have something to do with it as well. They need a reason to justify mass production of these new crafts. That's just my opinion though, so take it with a grain of salt. But guys and gals, I'm going to go ahead and end the video right there. I hope you enjoyed these clips we watched together today. I'll be back tomorrow with another video. I hope you come back to join me. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out www.barry-stepp.com if you'd like to order yourself a shirt or a hat and help me support the channel. Also, don't forget to post your photos of your merch over in the Discord to get your photo in a video. But with all that out of the way, I hope everyone has a great, safe, fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow.